Would you poke this for me, sweetheart? There. In the tub of water are ice cubes of various shapes. Now, what are the ice cubes? They are just grossified forms of the water, meaning its vibration level has been lowered. It's colder. What's the material cause of ice cubes? Water. Where are they located in this tub? Water. What happens when they melt? Water. Ishvara is the cosmic ice maker machine. Pushing out. Any of you have ice makers in your refrigerator? Ever seen how they take the water and then they make ice out of it? So all the names and forms are like the ice cubes. They come from Krishna. They are made up of Krishna. They exist for a while. When they melt, go back to Krishna. So that's a wonderful image that I just got introduced to this afternoon about how all this universe is nothing but God, nothing but consciousness. And these people, places, things, conditions, and everything are just what we call nama rupa, name and form. They're like the ice cubes. Now, if the ice cube breaks apart, is it any less water? Oh, I'm not going to exist as an ice cube anymore. Well, you were never material anything other than water. We are never anything other than God. Anyway, something to play with. So I think we're on the 10th verse. Is that where we are?
Yes. Page
So,
678.
pardon me?
I was just saying the page 678.
678, 10th verse.
10th verse of the 15th chapter.
Yes. Do you have enough light?
Yes. Did we complete the 10th? Are we doing the 10th?
We're doing 10th.
Utkramana utkramantam sthitam vapi bhunjanam va gunavitam vimudha nanu pashyanti jnana chakshuha.
Chakshuhu or chakshuha?
Chakshuha.
Chakshuha, okay.
Him who departs, stays and enjoys, who is united with gunas, the deluded do not see, but they do behold him who possess the eye of knowledge.
So you and I, if we're mudha, ignorant, foolish, we think when the ice cube melts, God, not there. But someone with the eye of wisdom knows that the self never dies. Now, let's review a little bit of our spiritual anthropology. What dies? What is reborn, reincarnated, and what is never born and never dies. So the image I like to use is a cup of tea. So imagine you've got a cup of tea, you got it downstairs, and it's in a paper cup. So you've got the paper cup, inside is the tea, inside the tea is a tea bag. The paper cup is like the physical body. The tea is my subtle body. That is sense perception, a subtilized form of the prana, mind, intellect, egoism, and unconscious impressions. You run around in a dream in your subtle body. The tea bag is like our vasanas. That's what causes the flavor of the tea. Now you're downstairs at Pachiso's, they serve you a cup of tea, and you sit down at your table and you realize there's a tiny hole in it. So you go back and say, oh, can you give me another cup? This one's got a hole in it. And so you take the tea and you go, pour it into another cup, then you toss that one. That's death and reincarnation. So it's the subtle body that goes from physical body to physical body. Listen carefully. Your subtle body is what we call jada. It's inert. It has no inherent sentience. The subtle body is inert. It has no inherent sentience. Your nose doesn't know your toes. You know them both. But one feeling doesn't know another feeling. One thought doesn't know another thought. You know them all. You even see the rising and falling of egoism. But you are like the space in the cup. So if the cup is empty or the cup is full, what happens to the space? Nothing. If I move the cup over here, what happens to the space? Nothing. If I crush the cup after I poured the tea into another cup, what happens to the space? Oh, the space is gone. No, nothing. Drink all the tea. What's happened to the space? Nothing. So you are in another dimension from the physical body and the sukshma sharira, the subtle body, the transmigrating soul, the jiva. And that we call Atman, Supreme Self. If you come from a Buddhist tradition, what the Buddhists would call self, we would call jiva, or jiva bhavana, the attitude of feeling like a person, the ground of being, the suchness that's always there. We call that Paramatma, Supreme Self, Purushottama, Atma, Brahma, that Supreme Self, ground of being the whole creation. They are the same. So if you're foolish, you think when the paper cup is destroyed, person who sees with the eye of wisdom, the jnana chakshu, may know first of all, for most ordinary people, subtle body isn't gone. Who here, Hugh, you were talking about your aunt passing away.
Yeah.
Did you get any sense of her presence after she died?
Yes.
What was it you were feeling?
I guess our energy.
But it had a definite quality of her, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. What we would say in yoga, that's her sukshma sharira, her antakarana, her inner equipment, her subtle body. That's not the self. Self is something that's even deeper. So those of us who felt the presence of a loved one who's passed away, we have direct experience that there's a difference between the meat lump and who they are as a person. Were you there when she actually passed?
Yes.
Yes. It can be a very beautiful event. But one of the things, most of us in the West especially, are very phobic about dying and death. We avoid it. And in the US, when a relative goes to the mortuary, and if you have an open casket, they're all made up like they look like they're sleeping. Oh, Auntie looks like she's sleeping. We don't get the real experience. But I suspect, tell me if I'm wrong here, that before she passed, even if she were very frail, there was a little bit of prana, a little bit of breath, there was still life, and all of a sudden, something was gone. Did you get the sense of that?
Yes.
Frequently, if you have the capacity to see energy, you'll see the sukshma sharira rise above the physical body. It's like a shimmering. Did you get a sense of that?
I, not visually, but in kind of a felt sense way, actually. Yeah.
And then depending on the mind state of the person, when they finally transition, this big release of energy. So physical body is born and it dies. Subtle body, that which goes from incarnation to incarnation, impelled by its desires. But Krishna, the self in you and me, is like space. Ajati, unborn. Amritam, does not die. Achalam, it doesn't move. Nirmalam, no taint, no dirt. Chidakasha, the space of consciousness itself. How do you know this, Jim? You look and see. So in a mind made very still, how? Practice meditation and let go, let go, let go. When the mind becomes still, you begin to get those moments of space between your thoughts. The attentive faculty turned inward, introverted. See if you can notice what's there. All that you see is there's nothing there. Yet it's not no thing. Satchidananda Rupaham. My form is pure existence. Consciousness without being conscious of anything. Awareness without being aware of anything. And Ananda. In the beginning, we translate that as no sorrow reaches there. But when we find when the mind can abide absorbed in the self, in fact, it's the fountainhead of all happiness, all joy. Next verse.
Jim, can I ask a quick question about the
Please.
subtle body? And maybe this is too technical, so you could just say, to skip it if it's not relevant. But you mentioned that in our dreams, our subtle body goes out to explore, right? But then you also mentioned that in our dreams, let's say if you have a relative who's passed and comes, who is in your dream, it's your own mind's projection. But how do you know that's not their subtle body?
Okay. We have essentially three kinds of dreams. The vast majority of them, I call them garbage dumping dreams.
Okay.
They are the undigested impressions of the waking state.
Mhm.
So you went on YouTube and you watched baby elephants playing in mud, and then you passed by the airport and you saw a plane. So you have a dream of an elephant in an airplane.
Mhm.
I see.
Mhm.
Your mind puts this stuff together.
Mhm.
Or will grab memories from childhood or some old boyfriend or girlfriend, stuff like that. That's the vast majority of dreams.
Mhm.
Then the next, and for women usually dream in color. Most men for these garbage dumping dreams, actually we don't. We dream in black and white. Some
that
men
so?
always dream in color.
Wow. You guys don't agree?
I dream of color.
Well, that's probably because you're more brain balanced.
Yeah.
I know. Do you dream in color?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I never thought about it, honestly.
I always dream in color.
Most women do.
Yeah.
But men have both.
Interesting.
But when you get to this next level of dream, one of the keys is you will find that they'll be in color. And that's when you're tuning into higher levels. This is where your guru may come and visit you. Friends may come and bring you messages. You may get insights about stuff. Then the next level up are what I call big dreams, where you might get prophetic intuitions about what's going to happen. Any of you studied any Carl Jung?
Mhm.
Yes, no?
Tiny bit.
He did a thing, he wrote a volume called The Red Book. Have any of you ever been exposed to the Red Book of Carl Jung?
No.
This is something that he did just before the Second World War.
Mhm.
And he would have these dreams and intuitions, and they're writings and drawings that he did. And he was getting prophetic insight about the coming Second World War. And some of it's pretty dark, but it's fascinating stuff because he had done enough work on himself and he was able to have access to the total mind. He was being able to see these larger karmic movements that were happening. So it depends on the kind of dream you have.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Jim, for clarifying.
Well, it's a good question. It's a good question. But there are people who do a particular practice, a psychic practice, I wouldn't call it spiritual, where you learn to lucid dream. And basically what you do is you start in the waking state, walking from your bedroom, say, into the kitchen. You do it several times. And what you try to do is you go to sleep, you program your mind. In my sleep, I'm going to walk from my bedroom into the kitchen. So you get a sense of being able to have lucid dreaming. Because most of us, our dreaming is very passive. This happened and then that happened. You know what I mean? You don't have the volitional aspect of intellect that we normally have, the karta, the doer that we have in the waking state. So you can learn to do this. You learn to do this. It won't get you anywhere close to enlightenment. It's just a trick. That's all it is. But this is where some yogis have control over the subtle body so they can go long distances and see what's going on, stuff like that. Read stories about that. And Western psychics do the same thing. But if they're psychic, this is not spirituality. Any other questions on this? All right, next verse.
Yatanto yogidat aschainam pashyantatman vastitam yatanko e pyakrat nainam pashyant yachetasaha. The seekers striving for perfection behold him dwelling in the self, but the unrefined and unintelligent, even though striving, see him not.
Yes. So those of us who have as our goal self-realization are called mumukshu, a seeker after liberation. We have the quality of mumukshutva, the burning desire for liberation. The word for liberation in Sanskrit is moksha. They're all related, these words. So the practice that's implied, if you're a mumukshu, endeavoring to see the self, not only in yourself, but in everybody. So I'm aware of my body. You are aware of your body. I'm aware of my thoughts and feelings. You are aware of your thoughts and feelings. But when I, as it were, look behind my eyes and notice the knower, all that's there is this vast, empty space of pure awareness. You look behind your eyes, as it were, and notice the knower. You have the same experience. The self in me is not like the self in you. The self in me is the self in you. So I'm sitting here and Vinayak's sitting over there. And I see his body. And he may have shared today what his feelings and thoughts are. But a conscious being is looking out of his eyes. It's myself, right? We have a word in the tradition called Kevala or Kaivalya, which means aloneness. Doesn't mean traipsing off to a mountain and sitting in a cave. It means there's only one of us here. One tub of water. Just ice cubes keep getting made and melted. That's all that's going on. Just the name and form changes. Conscious being is one. Foolish don't see it. They are over there and they hurt my feelings. All ignorance. All ignorance. Any thoughts?
Jim, I have a question.
Sure.
When you love someone and when it's not like romantic love, when it's more like that impersonal, unattached kind of love, are you recognizing the self in them in that moment?
And in yourself. Love is a taste of your own nature. But yes, you're recognizing the self in them too. So you love this person and you feel that deep, deep love. Then you turn your attention to the next person and you love them the same way. You feel that deep, deep love. Love is who you are. Someone used to say, my love is like a fire hose. Whoever gets in front of me gets blasted. But practice that. Did that help?
Yes, and also, does that imply that what we really cherish in our relationships with other people, we're really cherishing God?
You got it. There's nothing else. The mind goes out with longing. That is our suffering. The mind ceases its raga, its passion, its spriha, its longing, kama, its craving, and comes home. Home. The taste of myself. We experience it in two ways. There's a mediated form of it, when desire and object of desire become one, or when you're in the presence of an object where you have a past association, it stops my mind. The fool takes the piece of candy, eats the piece of candy, goes, God, I love chocolate. The yogi eats the same piece of chocolate. Boy, did that stop my mind. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Then there's a non-mediated experience, which the yogi has to learn to do, which is to retire into the self, independent of the world. Otherwise, the mind will continue to extrovert. We may theoretically know there's no pleasure other than the self. The world is shunyata, void. But if I don't have samadhi, if I don't have the capacity to tire into the self, the mind's going to extrovert into the world.
Jim,
Addictively, yes.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I had a related question.
Please.
So this one is about fear, which I'm reading a book now where the author talks about a number of experiments where they do brain surgeries on people, or people have diseases or what have you, and a part of the brain is lost. And that leads the person to completely not have any fear. So the point is, all the fear is coming from this particular part in the brain. And when you remove it, then fear and anxiety are no longer even possible for that person. So I thought this was super fascinating. And it got me thinking that how much of this is just chemical signals firing in our brain, which we then sort of build this story around and this whole self around. And obviously I don't want to go have brain surgery,
No.
but what can
And
I?
it may not work because
Yeah.
the brain has an incredible capacity to repurpose other parts of the brain. Understand that the mind is not the brain. The mind uses the brain in the waking state, in the physical body. So if you ever have met someone or read stories about someone who's had a near-death experience, anybody ever read stories about that? So someone drowns and the next thing you know, they're 20 feet up in the air and they're watching the firemen pull their body out of the pool and they do the what do they call it, CPR and stuff like that. And they go, God, look at that. They're having sense perception, thought, feeling, but they're not the body, and the brain's down there in the body. But then they come back from the dead and wham, all of a sudden you're back in your body. You go, "Ah!" So fear is in the mind. Fear is when I'm not getting what I treasure. I'm afraid I'm going to lose what's important to me. Or at a deepest level, I think I'm my body and that's starting to crumble and fall apart. I think I'm going to be annihilated. But I've never read that particular neuroscience thing. I'd be suspicious, first of all, whether or not 5 years later, I would be interested to see if they develop the capacity to be afraid again.
Actually, interestingly, the people don't do well at all without fear. It's just their ability to survive is a lot lower, because you just cannot process the world without some level of fear. But Jim, just to can you summarize what's the difference between mind and brain? I'm not sure I got it.
The mind is an element in the subtle body. It functions through the brain in the waking state. So, for example, if someone has a stroke, that damages their brain. They have a paralyzed side. They may not be able to speak, but I bet if they dream, they can run around in the dream and talk to people in the dream. That makes sense?
So the brain is the physical manifestation, while the mind is the subtle.
It's
manifestation.
subtle, yes. And that's with all the senses too. So for example, I have macular degeneration in the waking state. I see perfectly in my dream state. One of the things, this is a habit, put on Channel 5, watch the local news, and I want to watch at least the monologue of Stephen Colbert at 11:30. And guess what happens? I fall asleep. So Stephen Colbert is going blah, 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 blah. And I have a dream, let's say, that I'm at the opera. So there's Pavarotti singing Nessun Dorma in my dream. And Stephen Colbert is going blah, 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 blah on the television. The sound from the television is hitting my eardrums. It's doing what the three little bones and the cochlea. But somewhere it stops because that's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But in the waking state, the mind, the subtle body completely functions through the physical body. And there are interesting things that can happen when we meditate. Many people, when they meditate, they'll have a feeling like they're rising up. Maybe you get a little vertigo and then you open your eyes, you're back in your seat. Who's had that experience? Some people feel like they're listening to one side. Open their eyes and no, you're sitting up straight. Who's had that experience? This is when the resonance, the consonance between the subtle body and the physical body starts to move. Let's see. Open your eyes, you're back in the waking state, subtle body comes right back. But understand, the brain is in the physical body. Corpses can't think. They have a brain. Dead. Something enlivens them. All right, good questions. Going on.
यदादित्यगतं तेजो जगद्भास्यते अखिलं यच्चन्द्रमसि यच्चाग्नो तत्तेजो विधिवामकम्. That light which is residing in the sun and which illumines the whole world, and that which is in the moon and the fire, know that light to be mine.
Yes. So this is metaphor. We think of physical light, that which shines on everything. There's no light you can't see. But what is the light that shines and illumines even physical light? There's a meditation of the senses are diverse: hearing, tasting, touching, smelling. Which one did I miss?
Hearing.
Hearing, tasting, touching,
Sight.
smelling, seeing. The mind is one. The mind has various movements, but what's behind the mind? What's the eye of the eye? The ear of the ear? One of the words we have for the self is prakasha, light. Light of pure awareness. So just as the sun and the moon and the fire are that by which we're able to see stuff, what is the light that's beyond that light that illumines everything? Remember when we did the field and the knower of the field, Krishna says, I am the knower of the field in all fields. Kshetranya, the knower of the field. Going on.
Gama vishyache bhutani dharyamya bahojasa pushnami choshadiha sarvaha somo bhutva rasatmakaha. Permeating the earth, I support all beings by my energy, and having become the liquid moon, I nourish all herbs.
So just as we go back to our metaphor of the tub of water and the ice cubes, whatever the shape of the ice cube, it's made up of water. Its existence is water. Its nourishment is water. What is the essence of a thing without which it would not be the thing that it is? The nature of a thing without which it would not be what it is. That's its dharma. The dharma of all ice cubes is water. So also the sun, the moon, the stars, the dogs and the frogs, the worms and the germs, and all people. They all have a body, mind, and intellect, and an ego sense. All those are form, nama rupa. Enormous variety. Conscious being in everyone and everything is Krishna consciousness.
Jim, when it says I in the verse, is it referring to Krishna?
Krishna and yourself and God are the same thing. Let's go through these 4 classic, what we call Mahavakyas, these great utterances. These spell out in shorthand form essence of the teaching. And I like to put it in the context of telling a story because it helps us remember. So once upon a time, there was a woman, and she wanted to know the ultimate truth. So she heard that there are a lot of great saints in India. So she gets on a plane, she flies to India. She takes a train way up to the Himalayas and hires a car and goes even higher to this little village. She asks in the village, I'm looking for a saint. I want to know what's true. And people in the village say, oh, there's an Amaji. She lives up in a cave up in that mountain there. Just follow this path up and talk to her. She treks up there, and sure enough, this old woman in a white sari, no teeth anymore, long stringy hair, just glowing. The woman comes in, and she knows enough. She bends down, pranams, touches her feet. And she says, Amaji, what's true? What's God? The old goes, Prajnanam Brahma. What's that mean? Brahman, ultimate reality, is consciousness. So the young woman goes, okay. How the heck am I going to find that? Where is it? I am Atma, Brahma. This self is Brahman. You don't have to go up on top of a mountain. You don't have to go to outer space. The self is Brahman. The young woman says, oh, I get it. Your self is Brahman. I'm a worm. How am I ever going to know the self like it's out there someplace? The old woman goes, Tat Twam Asi, which means you are that. Now, this third great utterance is called the Upadesha Mahavakya. Upadesha means instruction, it means teaching. All of yoga is implied in that third great utterance. So the young gal stays with the old lady. She gets instructed in the path. She hangs out with her. Mind gets tuned up. She lets go of the world, lets go of her attachments, lets go of all these ideas of self. one morning in her meditation, everything disappears. But she's not unconscious. It's not deep sleep. The individuality is gone. The world is gone. And when the mind returns, it's conditioned by that. She learned Sanskrit in the years she was there. So she goes, oh, aham brahmasmi, which means I am Brahma. It's who I am. Listen carefully. She doesn't say, aham Mahatma, I'm a great soul. Aham Guru, touch my feet. Self in me. Brahma. It's my very nature. That's the totality of the teaching. Prajnanam Brahma. Brahman is consciousness. Where is it? I am Atma Brahma. This self is Brahman. Not some self out there. Tat Tvamasi. Who sees the phone? Do you see the phone, Sophia?
Yes.
That's yourself. You won't get another self. My problem is not that I don't have the self. My problem is I've superimposed all sorts of stupid ideas on that direct experience. So what do I need to do? Discriminate between the real self and all these ideas of self. That I'm the body, that I'm energy, that I'm feelings, that I'm thoughts, that I'm the ego which rises and falls. There's nothing left. Who am I? I am that by which all that has been known, but is never known as an object. You will never see yourself. You won't be in meditation, go, oh, that's it, that's the self. No, it's you. Just withdraw your attention from everything that's the not self. See what remains. Does that make it a little clearer?
Yeah.
That's the path. Each one of those Mahavakyas is taken from an Upanishad from each one of the four Vedas. And you make them. And that's the best of all questions, the one you ask. Many people come to the Guru. What do I do about my boyfriend? Should I take this job? Should I move over there? You know, Guru will give you the best worldly advice he or she can. Guru's not a fortune teller. But if you can begin to ask the important questions, who am I? What is this world? How has it come about? How do I ultimately become free? Oh, you're asking some good questions. All right. A wonderful little sidetrack. Good questions. Next verse.
Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva Praninam Dehamashritah Pranapanas Samyukta Pachamanam Chaturvidham. Having become the fire, Vaishvanara, I abide in the body of beings, and associated with prana and apana, digest the fourfold food.
So Vaishwanara is a term that Nara is a person, Vishwa is the waking state. Vaishwanara means the person who knows the waking state. And here he translates it as fire, is that right?
Mhm.
That can also mean that. The very fire that enlivens you in the waking state. Vishwa is the world. Nara just means a person. I'm having a senior moment. Read the whole thing again in English.
Having become Vaishvanara, I abide in the body of beings, and associated with prana and apana, digest the fourfold food.
Yes. So here there's a reference to the Panchavayu. Who can tell me what the Panchavayu is? The 5 subtle airs. Vayu means winds. So we have prana. Prana doesn't mean breath. Prana means vital energy. There's a whole science of being able to control the vital energy by controlling the breath. This is called pranayama. Any of you studied a martial art like Tai Chi Chuan or Aikido or something like that?
Yep.
Which one?
Tai Chi and Judo.
Tai Chi. What does the Chi mean in Tai Chi?
It's prana.
Chi, Ki, just Chinese and Japanese words for prana. So what these martial art forms do is learn how to control and have dominion over the movement of the vital force in the body. Now, the two he references here, prana and apana. Prana is the inhalation. Apana is, some texts say it's the exhalation. Some say it means also excretion, doesn't matter. But it's means all the 5 subtle airs. So you've got prana, apana, dhyana. I think that's circulation. Samana is digestion, and udana is thinking. So the point here is it is the prana as it moves in the body that governs our capacity to perceive with the senses, digest sense perceptions, etc. All of that happens through the prana, the vital energy in the body. Now, any of you have any Muslim friends?
I'm Muslim.
So we just finished Ramadan. What do you do in Ramadan?
Fast. I didn't fast.
But the
Yes,
teaching.
I do
is,
fast.
what is
Yeah.
a fast?
For Muslims, it's no food or water from sunup until sundown.
And why do we do it?
In Islam, the idea is to build empathy for the poor, and so you deprive yourself of food and water to feel how a poor person would feel.
That is one level of the teaching. There's another level. Virtually every religion requires or suggests, usually it's prayer and fasting. They go together. I think it's the same in Islam, isn't
You're
it?
right, people pray a lot more in Ramadan.
Yes. Now, let me tell you the science of this. Going back to our Panchavayu, the five subtle airs. So the root of it all is food. Food is what charges up the prana. And the kind of food we use affects the pranas. So if you go out and you have a really heavy meal with a lot of gross food, how do you feel afterward and how do you feel the next day? But if you've been eating salads and veggies and you've got a light diet and you're not overeating, how do you feel? Feel a lot better. So what happens when we fast? A fast is not a diet. You diet to lose weight. A fast is a spiritual practice. And what it does is it reduces all the activities of the five pranas. Kind of takes all that energy and makes it very centralized and interior. It's just a natural thing the body does. And because one of the pranas is udana, udana governs thinking. If you're fasting, have you fasted before, Sophia?
Yeah, I fasted every year until I came to the US.
But did you not find that your mind became purer?
Yeah, Ramadan is really amazing.
Yeah, you think more about God. You think more about the poor. You're not as caught up
You're
in
right.
the crap of the world. Isn't that true?
Yes. very
Now,
much so.
it's not only because it's an intention. It's because you do a very definite technical thing, which is don't eat. So it's something you can experiment. Even modern MDs are saying a day of fasting, intermittent fasting, all this kind of stuff. Have you guys come in contact with any of that?
Mhm.
Yes.
You know, there's something very natural about that. But you will find that if you have a sattvic diet, when we get to the last chapter, we'll look at the whole way we live our lives through the prism of the three gunas, through the lens of the three gunas. One of it is the food we eat. If you eat sattvic food, you will find that you will have an easier time with your sadhana. So, for example, many of us who've been on the spiritual path for some time find that we're intuitively attracted to become vegetarian. Now, there are ethical and moral reasons to do it, but it also is more sattvic. Helps to purify your mind. How? Because of an understanding of the science of pranayama, how to control, improve, and use the energy of the body. Now, some of you have shared with me that sometimes as the result of meditation, you have so much energy that it's hard to sleep, hard to do lots of other things. My suggestion is you might take up some asana, some yoga postures, and maybe some basic pranayama. What this will do is help regulate your energy body. It will work on your nervous system so you can handle the flow of energy much more easily. A little sidetrack there.
Jim, did you say what the fourfold mind is, or is that the five?
Did I say 4?
The verse says the fourfold mind. Is that right?
Well, it says, I don't know if it's fourfold or fourfold. My book says fourfold, and it says, digest the fourfold food.
Oh, food.
Oh, I think these foods, and he
Oh.
probably will tell, that's again allegorical. So check in his commentary what he says they are. I can't remember.
I digest the fourfold food, the digestive power. mm,
He'll list them.
Yeah, so there's that food should be masticated, swallowed, it's not licked. Under these 4 types, we can embrace all kinds of food, vegetarian and
Masticated, swallowed, sucked, and licked.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are 4 different kinds. But you can also think in terms of we eat with our eyes. We eat with our ears, meaning we digest information coming in. We feed the senses. And again, we can use the same idea. The purer the sensory perceptions, it will affect your mind. You spend your whole day looking at pornography, it's going to affect your mind. If you listen to Lalita Sahasranam, 1,000 names of the Mother Goddess, it will affect your mind. If you spend your time gossiping and trashing people at work, it will affect your mind. If instead you chant 1,000 names of God, this is digestion. All right, one more.
Sarvasya chaham hridi sanivishto mataha smritir jnana pohanam cha deveshvat vedeshya sarvahairam neva vedyo vedankrati veda chaham. Sorry, this one is really complicated to read. Am I seated in the hearts of all? From me are memory, knowledge, as well as their absence. I'm verily that which has to be known in all the Vedas. I'm indeed the author of Vedanta, and the knower of the Vedas am I. So the ultimate God, the ultimate Guru, is seated in your heart. Swamiji used to say the external guru is a temporary psychological device. And this inner teacher, that's the meaning of the word intuition. Tuition means teaching, teaching inside. One of the things we do as yogis is learn to pay attention to that inner teacher. So he's seated in the hearts of all people. And in all the scriptures, not just the Vedas. Ultimately, the subject is about God. In Judaism, we've got 613 rules, the kosher rules, do's and don'ts. Islam has a whole bunch of them. Hinduism, thousands of them. But what's the purpose of all this? Find out who God is. And then he says he's the essence of the Vedanta. Veda Anta, the end of knowledge, can also mean those concluding portions of the Vedas, the Upanishads. But the Upanishads
ultimately only have one subject matter. What is the nature of ultimate reality? And how does a human being participate in that? Koham, who am I? What is this world? That's the Vedanta. So it's yourself, and it's the ultimate subject of every true teaching. Now, no religion has a monopoly on obscene dogma and bad behavior. I have yet to come across a religion that didn't have practitioners with those problems. And always somebody says we should just take the deep mystical truth and take it outside of religion. Unfortunately, what happens is within a couple hundred years, that becomes a religion, and then it develops its share of obscene dogma and bad actor people. So you always find this jewel of deep mysticism in a setting, a bezel of religion. Our job is to be able to discern what has become human foible and what is the truth teaching. Right now, we have conflict in India between Muslim and Hindu. Pointless, both talking about the same thing. Orthodox versus Catholic, Christian versus Jew. All those arguments are all about human things, secular things. They're never about truth. All right, it's 8:00. What verse are we on for next week?
16.
16. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you all.